Okay, so we're going to start with our lower body, starting with the hips. So what I want us all to do is to come down onto our backs, moving anything out of the way that's in your way. Bend through both knees so that you can plant both feet onto the mat. Bring your right foot to the ceiling. You'll feel that opening through the hamstring of your right leg if you flex through your right foot. Then bend through your right knee, hook your right ankle over your left thigh. This might be enough for you as you drive your right knee towards the front of the room and still trying to hug your right ankle towards your torso. If you can do with some more, reach your hand so your right hand goes through the whole of your leg, taking a hold of the top of the shin. Return your shoulder blades down onto the mat. So I really want you to press your shoulder blades down onto the mat. And then we're drawing that right ankle towards our torso, flexing through the right foot, and then encouraging that right knee to go towards the ceiling. On your inhales, give yourself a little bit of space so you're relieving some of the pressure. And then on your exhale, draw everything closer. Inhale, release. Exhale, draw everything in. Feeling this in our right outer hip. Slowly releasing the grip of our hands, return the left foot down to the mat. We're going to keep that right knee bent, we're going to draw it into chest. Give yourself a nice tight squeeze. And then extending the right foot towards the ceiling, we're going to take our right hand to the knife edge blade of our right foot. Take a real deep grab of that right foot, and then what we're trying to do is we're encouraging that right knee to come towards our right armpit. You may need to roll onto your right hip just slightly as you hug everything once again towards the midline. If this is enough for you, keep drawing and finding that compression through your right hip crease. Otherwise, if you want a little more, you can extend your left leg forward towards the front of the mat. You'll start to feel an opening through the front of your left hip flexor as you keep drawing that right knee down towards your armpit. Both shoulder blades are down and in contact with the mat. Stay for 5 more breaths. After your 5th and last breath, bend through your left knee and plant your left foot once again onto the mat. Extend your right leg up as you release the grip of your hand, and then replace your right foot back down to the mat. If you're feeling quite tight within your right hip crease, you can windscreen wipe the knees from side to side. And then find center. Ground down through your right foot and extend your left leg to the ceiling. Again, flex through your left foot so you feel that lengthening of your hamstring. And then bend through the left knee, hook the left ankle over the right thigh. We'll take this in stages once again. So we're trying to actively draw that left knee towards the front of the room. We're trying to encourage that left ankle to come towards our torso. And then if you're ready for some more, maybe lift the head and the chest just so you can look towards your feet. Reach your left arm through the gap and interlace your hands over the right thigh or shin. Settle your shoulders back down onto the mat. Keeping your neck nice and long. And then drawing your left ankle towards your rib cage. Actively pressing your left knee towards the sky. On your inhales, release the tension a little. And then on your exhales, draw everything towards your torso. Noticing that opening through your left outer hip. Stay for 2 more deep breaths. Keep flexing through that left foot. And after your second and final breath, return the right foot down to the mat. Squeeze your left knee into chest. And then extend the left foot towards the ceiling. Take a hold of the knife edge blade of that left foot, really grabbing onto the foot. And again, we're finding our half happy baby, so we're starting to draw our left knee towards our left armpit. You may slightly roll over onto the left side body, but then I encourage you to bring everything back towards the midline, flexing through the left foot, so you stay nice and active. You'll feel that compression through your left hip crease. And then if you want more, you can extend your right leg towards the front of the room, opening up through the front of the right hip flexor. Taking 5 deep breaths. Bend through your right knee, returning your right sole of the foot to the mat. Release the grip of your hand on your left foot, extend it long, and then replace the left foot down. Now staying on our backs, what we want to do is we want to open up both hip flexors. So we'll locate either 1 or 2 block-like shaped objects, whether you have a block at home or not. A book might be convenient, or a couple of books, or even a pillow if you have sensitive hip flexors. All we're looking to do is we're going to lift our hips slightly so we can slide underneath our hips, right underneath our pelvis. One object that's going to help support us upright. You can lower your hips down to make sure that the block is in the right spot. I want you to make sure that your pelvis is parallel to the ground. So you should feel completely supported here before you move on. If this is enough for you, stay here. But if you want a little bit more, you can extend both legs towards the front of the room. This is going to create an arch through the body. You'll notice how you open up through the fronts of your hip flexors. And if you want to extend this into your full body, you can take your arms overhead, maybe interlacing the hands so that you can, taking opposite elbows so that you can open up through the front of your chest, allowing your legs to hang heavy. Steady your breath, maybe closing down the eyes. Just encouraging that gentle opening through both hip flexors. And when you're ready to return, release the grip of your hands, return them down by your side, bending through both knees so that you can plant both soles of the feet onto the ground. Lift your hips, slide whatever prop you've chosen out of the way, and then slowly return back through center. Okay, so now we're going to keep focusing on the legs. So specifically, first we're going to start to work into our ankle joints. So I want you to come into tabletop to begin. So your hips are over your knees. We're going to tuck our toes under. Even make sure that your pinky toe is included in that. So you go onto each side, make sure your pinky toe is tucked under, and then slowly walk your hands underneath you so you can feel nice and supported. This might be enough for you. You'll start to feel that opening through the sole of the foot and some compression through the front of your ankle. If you feel comfortable, you can take your hands onto your thighs. If you feel really comfortable here, the more you track your body backwards in space over your ankles, the more compression you'll find through your ankle joints. If this is too much, feel free to come out. Wherever you are today, we'll stay for just 10 breaths. Sit nice and tall if you're sitting upright. Steady your breath, see if you can breathe into your bellies. Inhale deeply. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Slowly letting your breath run deep into your bodies. If you feel that intensity through your ankle joint, I'm just going to encourage some movement to take your mind away from that compression. So we're going to interlace the hands and extend them forward, rounding through the spine. Chin to chest. Reach your arms up overhead. Exhale, racking in. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, racking in. I know you're all feeling it. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, roll in. 2 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Return your hands to your legs. Walk your hands forward so you're back in tabletop. You may need to untuck the toes and tap the feet out to release that pressure from your ankle joint. You can sit with that rebound effect so you can really feel the changes that you're affecting in your ankle joint. And then we're going to move on. So now we're going to come into single leg Virasana. So what that is we're going to bring our knees to touch and take our feet out to mat width apart. Take our block if you need it, you'll know, behind you, and come sitting onto the block. We're going to come onto our right hip and extend our left leg forward. So if this feels comfortable for you, I would suggest trying to remove the block. And what we're aiming to achieve is for our right ankle to be by our right outer hip. Both knees are hugging towards one another. And you can stay here and take 5 breaths, or take your hands behind you and slowly lower down to either forearms or maybe all the way down to the mat. Staying for 5 breaths, still hugging everything towards the midline, so both knees are trying to touch one another. For 4 more breaths, you'll feel that opening through the front of your right ankle. For 3 breaths, maybe feeling a stretch through the front of your right quad. 2. 1 last breath. Coming back onto your hands. Rolling onto your left outer hip. Extending your right leg forward. Bend through your left knee, taking your left ankle by your left outer hip. Finding the same variation that you did on the other side, whether you were upright, maybe you come down to your hands, maybe your forearms, or maybe laying all the way down to the mat. And we'll stay for 5 more deep breaths once again, hugging both knees towards one another. After your 5th and last breath, press into your hands so that you can come back upright, coming out onto your right outer hip and extending your left leg forward. You may need to bounce out through the knees to release anything that you held within your legs during that hold. Now, if this was enough for you, just stay with that movement. Otherwise, if you feel like your body can go a little bit deeper, what you can do is you can come onto your tabletop, bring your knees together, take your feet out mat width apart, and then sit between both heels. Coming into our full version of Virasana, hugging the ankles towards both outer hips so you're really condensed. You'll draw your knees together. Then you can stay here. This is a lot going on in the lower part of your body. You can take your hands behind you if you please. Steady your breath. If at any point you feel like you can go a little bit deeper, you can come down onto your forearms, still hugging your knees towards one another, or you can come laying down onto your back. Holding opposite elbows overhead will be the full variation of this pose. Breathing deeply into your bellies. Only take this option if it's available to you. Otherwise, a single leg option is also good. To come out, you come out the same way we came in. So first coming up onto forearms, then onto hands, then upright, releasing on one hip at a time. We're going to slowly lower down onto our bellies. Coming up onto forearms, just so that we can set our alignment. We're going to look over our right shoulder to begin, starting on our right side. So we'll bend through our right knee, so that our right knee is in line with our right hip. And then directly behind our right knee is our right ankle. You can flex through that foot to begin, so that you can make sure that there's a right angle created with your right leg. And then slowly relax that leg, slowly lower your way down. You can take either ear to the mat. You can take your hands out to a T. And what we're trying to encourage is for our right hip to drop down towards the mat. A gentle opening of your right hip. And you can stay for about 5 to 10 breaths. After that time, extend your right leg back down to meet your left. Coming up onto forearms once again to set your left side alignment. Look over your left shoulder and bend through your left knee. So your left knee is in line with your left hip. And then your left ankle is directly behind your left knee. Again, you can flex through the foot if that helps you find that right ankle alignment. And then slowly lower down to the mat, taking the opposite ear to the mat. So we're balancing out both sides. Start to release any tension you're holding through the lower part of your body, through your glutes. And we're really starting to draw our left hip down towards the mat. Staying for 5 to 10 breaths. Return your left leg down to meet your right. If this was too much for you, or if this felt like enough for you, stay here and just sit with it, breathe deeply. If you're ready to go deeper, you can affect both sides at once, but it intensifies the stretch quite a bit. So to come into the deeper variation, what we want to do is find that same alignment, but on both sides. So you start to come onto your hands and knees and then walk your knees out so that they're in line with each other. We don't want our hips going too far forward or too far back in space. As you walk your knees out wide, start to sink your hips. You'll feel both hips externally rotating. You can take your forearms to the mat, or maybe you're just at hand's distance. Look back at each foot and make sure that your ankle is directly behind each knee. Your knees are now in line with your hips, your ankles behind your knees. Keep your spine nice and long, so you're looking down towards the mat. As you breathe deep in towards your belly, you may feel like you've gone either too far and you need to draw your knees back closer to one another. Realign yourself if you do. Otherwise, if you feel like you can go a little bit more deeper, inch your knees away from one another and start to sink your hips once again. See if you can stay where you are for 5 to 10 breaths. When you're ready to come out, after your 5 to 10 breaths, take your hands towards each other so that you can come up onto your handprints, bring your big toes to touch and sit your hips back towards your heels. You can come into child's pose so that it doesn't shock your hips in any way. You'll feel some relief, so wide leg child's pose. Stay for a moment for your body to readjust. And then walk your hands back towards yourself so you come into a seat. So for some of you, similar to me, forward folds will feel like you're sitting back in space instead of sitting forward in space. What we really want is for our pelvis to tilt forward so that we forward fold. If you struggle with finding that pelvic tilt, and if you feel like you're rounding from your back, and that you might feel pain up your back, a better way of doing this, especially if you've got a Doorframe handy, is by finding that forward fold upside down. So to feel that hamstring stretch, what we're going to do is we're going to basically straddle our feet on either side of the Doorframe. We want our stance to be quite even. Then we're going to side bend so that we can find a similar forward fold with our knees nice and bent. You'll feel contact with your head towards the Doorframe, and then I want you to try and find contact by tucking your chin into chest, rounding through your spine so that you can press the upper back into the Doorframe. You can take your hands down by your side so that you feel supported and you can feel where your body sits in space. Then, once you find the deep bend of your knees, you can shuffle your feet to about hip width apart. You'll feel nice and stable as you press your back into the Doorframe. Then think about extending the front of your shins and the front of your thighs towards the other Doorframe. By extending your legs back in space, you're pressing away from the Doorframe through your upper back. You may even be able to float the hands. You can interlace your hands behind your back if that helps you feel more stable, and you'll start to feel that opening through both of your hamstrings. If at any point you want to relieve the pressure, you can bend through the knees, stay for a few breaths, and then reintroduce that opening through your hamstrings by straightening out through the legs. In this active pose, stay for about 5 breaths. To release, bend through the knees, and to come out, slowly roll your way back in space, walk your hands up and over so you side bend out.